let's jump in. So tonight we are talking about resistance and how to overcome it, right? And so, um, like all of you, I'm sure that you have noticed sometime in your moving or in your doing and the things that you have in front of you that you'll be moving in purpose, you'll be moving with the direction, you'll be moving with clarity, and then suddenly everything wants to get into the way. So like life starts lifing and it feels like everything keeps just coming up. And so you finally commit to like praying every morning and then boom, suddenly you forget how to set your alarm or your alarm app suddenly decides it doesn't want to work that day or the next day or the day after that, right? And we don't know how those things happen, right? But the alarm just doesn't work anymore, right? Or you'll sit down to write the business plan and then suddenly you remember that you have laundry that you've been ignoring for weeks. And now that laundry is also resistance because it should have been done earlier too, right? And so that laundry is now the priority. And you forget all about the business plan. And then 3 weeks go by and you're like, I was supposed to do my business plan. But what had happened was, right? Or it's time for you to do the content and you go to sit in front of your computer and start writing the content out or do whatever it is that you're going to do to create the content. And then you start, oh, wait, I got a message on Instagram. Let me see. And then next thing you know, 3 hours have gone by and you've just been scrolling and sending everybody your reels. That's why my phone is on block because that scrolling thing with the reels is a real thing. Pardon the pun. But so my phone is on block for Instagram and all the other like grams that can distract me. So we want to be intentional in this year, right? And we've been talking about that all year long. And it's almost March. First quarter is almost over. That's crazy because I know we just said Happy New Year like 2 days ago, but it's almost the end of the first quarter, which means that the time is flying whether you are doing what you need to do or not. Huh? Okay. Yeah. So we have to be able to discern and figure out what is the resistance and how is it showing up specifically for us, right? And there are three ways that it can generally show up, and that's mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. But there's good news for you, friends. God has already given us everything that we need to be able to push through it. So today, we're not going to just talk about how to stay committed, right? But we're going to start dismantling the excuses, the fear, the attacks of the enemy that try to keep us from walking in purpose. Sound good? Nod, thumbs up in the chat. Let me see. Let me make sure you're here. Should start taking attendance doing roll call. Are you here? I see that thumb. I see that hand. Okay. Okay. Yes. All right. So we got things to do. So we're going to pray and then we're going to jump into the things. All right, Lord, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for your love for us. Thank you for your care. Thank you for your guidance. Thank you for your direction. Thank you for the wisdom and discernment that you give to us, God. Thank you for helping us to figure out where resistance is showing up in our lives as we are moving in the direction that you have given us, as we are walking in purpose, and figure out how it is that we need to partner with you to dismantle those things so that we are able to carry out everything that you have given us, every plan that you have put in front of us, every idea that you have given us to carry out. God, we want to be good stewards of the things that you've given us. We want to be good stewards of the dream. We want to be good stewards of the ideas. We want to be good stewards of the plans that you have prepared for us, God. And we want to walk in purpose and intentionality as we move forward. Thank you for sitting with us in this time today and giving us the blueprint for how to move forward. We love you. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Ready? Hi, Money. Oh, look, we got faces today. Come on, friends. Let's see. Okay, Patandra. All right, so let's jump into the things. Ready? All right. So, uh, so when we are thinking about the resistances that come up for us, you know some of the things that come up for you. You know some of the mind things that happen when it's time for you to move on something, right? So like, when you think about mental things, if I'm looking to the left, it's because I have another screen over here. Am I really the right person for this? Like, is it me? Am I the right person? Is this really the idea that God has given me to carry out, or is this for somebody else? Is it the right time? Is it the right place? Am am I equipped? Do I have enough knowledge behind me? Do I have enough skills? Do I have enough abilities? Whatever do I have? Is it enough? All of those things, you know which ones you say to you, right? Or you know which ones creep up in the middle of you doing something that causes you to step back for a second, right? That's a resistance, right? So that's the mental resistance. Emotional. I don't feel like it today. I feel I feel like I want to be doing something else. This isn't fun for me today. I feel drained. I don't know if I want to engage in this today. Like those types of things can be the emotional ways that it shows up for us, right? Um, my body is bodying today, especially for women, right? I don't want to do this today. I need to be under the covers and just hide for the world or whatever it is that you know, like listen, sometimes we have to push through things that we don't want to push through, right? And there are times and listen, we're going to talk about that at the end, and we're going to talk about it all week this week in the devotional. But there are times that we do need to slow down, right? There are times that we need to embrace stillness, right? But that's not every day, right? And it's not all the time. Sometimes we are not going to feel good and we still would need to show up. Okay. So that being said, um, and then spiritual. And you like those can show up in saying like every time I start, something goes wrong, or like I just feel like I'm under attack all the time. Um I hear the enemy telling me that I can't do this, and I'm yielding to what he's saying because maybe he's right. I can't do this, right? Um, Distractions keep coming into my space as I'm trying to move forward. Something will happen over here, or my family will call, or my friends will call, and whatever your distraction things are, right? So being able to discern which things are coming up, and we're going to dive into those a little bit more. Okay, so that was a weird sounds in here. I got scared. I had to look back behind me. Okay, so mental resistance. These are the lies that we tell ourselves. And I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all know. So write a mental note in your calendar. But a lot is going to get ready to happen in this space in March, right? Get ready. We're moving. We're doing things out here. Okay. And so for the people who've been saying that I don't have time to work out, or I don't have an accountability partner, or nobody like all those types of things, or I can't afford to go to the gym, I got something for you. And it's starting in like a week, right? Stay tuned. Stand back and stand by, as we've heard before. But uh, um, there are things coming. But one of the other things that's coming is a book club. And the book that we're gonna start with in March is going to help us with our minds. We are going to spend a whole month on the stories that we tell ourselves, because we have to get out of our own way in this season. We cannot stay in our way. Like whatever we're telling ourselves that we have bought into, or we've allowed generationally to trickle down, whether it be in our our mindset about ourselves, our mindset about our money, our mindset about our physical fitness, our mindset about our business or our mission, whatever it is, like those things have got to be broken down because we have work to do, right? And because we have work to do and we have kingdom assignments to accomplish, we can't afford to let the lies continue to live rent free in our minds. So we're starting a book club. We're going to read a book, but everything is going to be about the mind in March. So buckle up, Buttercup. It's going to, we moving somewhere. Okay. But let's start with the battlefield of the mind, like in this conversation. That's funny because it's close to the book title. But so let's start with the battlefield of the mind because for most of us, this is where the real war is happening, right? Main place that these things are occurring are in our own minds. A lot of times it's not the inner me, it's our inner me. What is your inner me telling you that is keeping you from moving into the spaces and doing the things that God has called and created you to do, right? And so we have to identify those things in this season so that you are able to do the things that you need to do. So if you ever had a great idea, like, oh man, this right here, this idea right here is going to change the game. This idea is going to break generational curses. This idea right here, this is it. And then immediately you're like, but this won't work because this has to happen or I don't have the finances to start this, or I don't know if I have enough help, or who's going to even listen to me if I start talking about this, right? You talk yourself out of it. Oh, I would start that business, but what if nobody buys anything, right? Or I would put it on Instagram, but what if nobody even looks at it? Nobody sees it, right? Whatever it is, I should apply for that opportunity, but what if they say no, right? Um, here's something that keeps coming up in this year. What do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? Right? A lot of us are already like, well, listen, is God is you or you, right? And if it really is you or you in this season, then you're gonna either have to move and let God do what he can do, or you're gonna sit in the same place and be in the same place, right? Or even get left behind in ways because there was something you were supposed to move on that had a timeline on it, right? Sometimes I think we are taking God's grace for time for granted, and we think that, oh, well, it'll be available to me later, right? If I put it on the back burner now, it's going to still be there for me at another time. And it's okay if I don't do it right now. I can do it later. But some things God has a timeline on for us. And if we don't move on them in the time, the window that's open, when that window closes, it's not going to be there for you, right? Or it's not going to be there for you in the way that you thought it was going to be there for you. Or there might have been some other things attached to it that aren't there for you in that space because you didn't move in timing, right? And so God's will and God's timing are important for our journey. And so some of us are rejecting ourselves before the world even gets a chance to, right? You've got an amazing, listen, I'm not sure who one of you is by your name, but you can type it in the chat. But I know that the rest of you who I can see on here have something amazing that God has given you that he wants you to give to the world. I know that for a fact. How do I know? I've had conversations with all of you. So I know that for a fact. And so the world needs what it is that God has given you to give. Stop holding what the world needs because you are afraid to move to the next space or because you keep talking yourself out of it, right? Here's the truth. Your thoughts are either moving you forward or they're holding you hostage. And most of the time, it's not the enemy holding us back. It's the self-doubt being disguised as being realistic. I'm a realist, right? You can't be a realist and a faithist at the same time. Which one you gonna be? A faithist? Not even a word, or a realist. You have to figure out which side you're going to be on. You either going to believe God or you're not, right? But Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And that's not just the easy things. That's not the things that make sense, but it's everything. I can do all things. So the question for you is, what limiting beliefs do you need to surrender today? Right? You can write that in your workbook. I'll put the workbook back in the chat for the people who haven't gotten to their workbook yet. I think I put it in there early, but I'm putting it back. All right. So yeah, what limiting beliefs do you need to surrender today? Which ones are living rent free in your mind, in your spirit, in your soul? It's time to let it go. We got things to do. We got work to do. The verse that keeps coming up for me this year, and I probably said it to some of you, is Nehemiah 6:3. I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. You are doing a great work, and you cannot come down. You can't come down to fear. You can't come down to self-doubt. You can't come down to lack. You can't come down to the voices in your head or the voices outside of you, right? Whoever is talking to you, who's telling you that you can't or you shouldn't or you shan't, right? Whatever it is, you shall not, shan't. Those voices, they can't live there. They can't live there. And so we may have talked a little bit about boundaries, but we're going to get into that a little bit more a little later. But boundaries are important this year. Strong boundaries, strong no's are important this year because you have things to do. So emotional resistance, when feelings get in the way. So let's talk about the emotions. This one hits home for many of us, right? But how many of you have felt completely unmotivated to do something that God told you to do, right? Like you were supposed to write that book. You're supposed to launch that business. You're supposed to start that ministry. You're supposed to talk to those people. You're supposed to feed the people. You're supposed to do whatever it is. Right? But you just don't feel like it, right? And so last week, the devotional was telling us that obedience is more important than our feelings. And I wrote it, but it stepped on my toes. Obedience is more important than our feelings. And in my reflections last week, there's one part in the devotion where I wrote, obedience costs you something. And when I was doing a reflection, going back over it, it was like, I said it, but uh, when I heard myself say it out loud, I said, my God, obedience does cost you something, right? But sin costs more. Obedience does cost you something, but disobedience is way more costly than obedience. And the price, I promise you, is too high to pay, right? And so when our feelings get in the way, we are moving into that space of disobedience, especially when it's something that God has told us to do. And so here's the deal. When your feelings get in the way, your feelings are real. They're not fake. Your feelings are real. Your feelings are valid, but they're not always true. Sometimes our feelings make us feel like there have been many times where I'm like, but no one's even going to listen to me. These are my real thoughts. Who's even paying attention to what I have to say? So, I mean, is it even going to make sense? Is it valid? If I put this writing out here, is anybody going to even read it? Right? And sometimes, like, my mind will say, no one's going to read it. I'm like, right? And sometimes it'll be in the middle of my prayer time. And that's how I know it's the enemy. 'Cause I'm like, I'm in the middle of talking to Jesus. And here you come interrupting my prayer time with these lies, right? And so then I have to go and do my affirmations and affirm myself and say, no, I am whatever it is that the enemy is telling me that I'm not, right? I am a writer. I am creative. I am a voice that needs to be heard. I am walking in obedience, right? Whatever it is that I need to remind myself that I am, because I'm being told in my mind that I'm not, right? I gotta reinforce what I know to be true. Like I have a whole page of like 118 affirmations that I've broken up into different days to be able to read for myself. I write these for me, right? To say, Candace, you can't come down because this is what God says. Regardless of what the enemy says to you, this is what God says. And here's what I want you to be reminded of. This is not in the notes. This is just what's coming off the top of my head to tell you, right? Because you have something great to give to the earth, because you have great callings on your life, because you're being used as God's vessels, because God needs something from you, you can expect the attacks from the enemy on your mind, your spirit, and your emotions, right? You should expect it. In fact, if the enemy's never coming after you, then you might need to check what side you're on. I'm an enemy to the enemy if I'm walking on God's side. If I'm doing what God is telling me to do, I'm an enemy to the enemy, right? And so I have to have my battle weapons intact because I know that he's trying to come from my mind. I know that he's going to try to come from my thoughts. I know that he's going to try to come from my I know I'm on his hit list and he's on mine, right? So that being said, I got to have my weapons so that I'm ready to fight. And so for me, having those affirmations on deck, weapons, the devotions, weapons, meditation, weapon. My Bible sleeps literally in the bed with me now. Weapons. Because I don't know when I'm gonna need to wake up and turn to a scripture. And I leave it open. We're not closing this book. We're gonna sleep with the Bible on a pillow right next to me, and it's gonna stay open. And so will my prayer journal, right? Because I need weapons in this season, right? I'm coming hard, and so I know that he's fast on the heels. So I gotta be suited and booted, right? Open the scroll. Yes. I got the worship music on 24/7 in this place right now because I know I'm on the hit list. Like even what was it? Friday night, just weird things started happening at night. But I know that the whole week had been just moving in what I know God is telling me to do. And I was like, he's trying to scare me for real. He's really trying to scare me. Like we live in a physical world, but we are spiritual people. And we have spiritual things that we encounter. And so while we are building these businesses, while we are leading these things, while we are doing whatever it is that God has told us to do not forget that this is not an earthly fight. It is a spiritual fight, right? And therefore you have to have everything that you need. So when your emotions tell you that you're not good enough, when when your emotions tell you that you're too tired or that you don't feel like it, or that you should wait until you are ready or wait until you feel ready, that's a trap, right? If you wait till you feel ready, you're going to be waiting forever. I'm never ready. Do you know every time I get on here to do one of these, I'm nervous. I am sweating every time. Like, I don't even know if the words are going to come out right. All these things, right? But Isaiah 41:10 says, do not fear, for I am with you. That means that we don't move based on how we feel. We move based on what God has said is true for us. We move because God is with us. We move because He's given us marching orders and we got to march in them, right? So next time your emotions tell you to quit, ask yourself, is this God telling me to pause? Or is it just my feelings trying to keep me comfortable? Because comfort zones are cute, but they're also where dreams go to die. Nothing big has ever happened in anyone's comfort zone. Whoever you want to list as, oh, this person has done amazing things in the world, they had to leave their comfort zone to do that. And it cost them something, right? And so obedience is important. And though, but the resistance is real, right? And so that we talked about mental, we talked about emotional, we talked about, and here spiritual. So when the enemy attacks, and all of these for real are attacks. But there are some that are specific, right? Now, this one is the one that's probably the most ignored by most people in the world, right? The spiritual resistance, right? Spiritual resistance is not something that we are often looking for with our fleshly eyes. Who I said these are all fought for real in the spirit, but the enemy is not out here fighting people who aren't a threat. He's not looking for people who are sitting at home in their comfort zones, just like, oh, da, 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 da. He's not looking for Goliath. He already got him. He's looking for David. He's not looking for the brothers of Joseph. He's looking for Joseph, right? He's not looking for the other queens in the court. He's looking for Esther, right? Because those people are a threat. When God is giving you something to carry out, you'll become a threat. The moment you start walking in purpose, you are a threat. When you say, yes, God, all right, we moving on this train that you got us on. We got it. The moment you say yes, your car starts acting up. Your kids start wilding, right? Your sleep disappears, and now you're nocturnal out here like an owl. And you're wondering what's going on, what is happening, why are all these things happening when I'm moving in the direction that God has told me to walk in? Because the distractions will come. The attack is real. Don't be fooled and don't be deceived thinking that those things aren't going to come. Now, how you respond to them is what makes a difference in the game. Are you going to let them derail you? Are you going to let them distract you? Are you going to let them get you off your square? Are you going to let them keep you from doing what God said to do? Are you going to let them keep you in your feelings? Right? When the enemy attacks, it's because you're valuable. You are carrying something worth attacking. If you're facing serious resistance, it's probably because you're on the right path, right? Ephesians 6:11 says, put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. Translation: you don't fight spiritual battles with human strength. You fight with prayer, fasting, and faith, and surrounding yourself with kingdom community who can help you when you get into those spaces. So if it feels like everything is coming at you right now, don't panic. You should actually start praising God because that means something is about to break through. You're on the edge of something big. Breakthrough is closer than you think. Keep walking. When um when I left my job to go full time in my business, when I lived in Atlanta, uh Manaya was there. Uh the week before my car died, the week of I get a car, I send my resignation letter. The Sunday after I get a new car, I get in a car accident, total the car, less than 6 days after getting the car. Couple of weeks after that, my birthday, like this is all within a 30-day span. My birthday, I get into another night with my car. The person who's driving me on my birthday, we pull over on the side of the road. We're on the side of the road, and someone comes and slams into us from the back. Their car is totaled, right? And then on my way to a prayer meeting, just a few weeks after I got the new car to replace the other new car, I get into somebody else hits me from the back on my way to prayer service. I was leaving church the first time that the car got hit in total, listening to Imagine Me on the road. Imagine me loving what I see. I was not imagining me loving that experience at all, right? And it was so bad that the our prayer team pastor said, "Are you sure you're doing what God is telling you to do? Because it sounds like he's trying to move you back. It sounds like you're Jonah out here." I was like, "I am positive I am moving in the direction that God has told me to move in. I promise you, I'm moving in the right direction." But those were all spiritual attacks, right? Those were all like they were all spiritual attacks, right? I showed you the front side, and here's what the enemy will do, right? Because I had a big decision to make recently, and when it was time for me to make that decision, it was going to cost me something, right? And it was going to make me have to lean and depend on God, right? And I was thinking back to the last time God required something big from me. And when I was thinking back on that, I was only thinking about the things I just told you about. I was like, but I don't want to have to go through those types of things anymore. Like it was a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot mentally. It was a lot spiritually. It was a lot physically. It was a lot. Like it was scary. And he said, but you forgot all the things that happened in between that, right? You forgot that you were able to get that car the first time after when your car died and it being right on time. So like when you resigned from the job, you had the new car and you didn't have to worry about figuring that out after you resigned from the job. When I resigned from the job also had to pay me almost for 2 months after I resigned. So I'm living on that income when I resigned from the job. When I got the new car and it got totaled, they paid me more than we paid for the car. Then when it was time for me to go into that next new week, I thought I was gonna have a week full of freedom and just sit back and relax. My schedule was just as full as it was the week before when I had the job with new clients in the business or clients that were already there. So we focus a lot of times on the things that are going wrong, but we're not paying attention or we forget about the things that God like that He used those things to bless you in the process. Don't be focused on the wrong thing. What is God trying to show you in the midst of Him taking something? Because He can't give you something if He can't get something from you. If you're holding on tightly to the last thing that he did, and like, this is the only blessing I'm ever gonna get in life, because so I gotta hold this on. I can't let it go. And he's like, release it so I can give you something. So I can give you something else. I want to give you something better. But you holding this so tight. How you gonna get it? How can I give it to you? You holding it for dear life. Let go so I can give you something else. Right? So like, don't be fooled. God is going to use everything for your good, even if it looks crazy. If you are walking in obedience, that's the key part. If you are walking in obedience and you are moving in faith and doing what he said to do, he will do his part. Right. And so now I'm out here on this new faith journey and I'm like, all right. So it's you, God. It's on you. Because like, you took the comfort zones. I gave them to you. So it's on you. And you know, I have a standard for what I need. I said the other day, I said, I'm your spoiled princess daughter. And that means you have to take care of me in the way that you know I need to be taken care of. Right. And so I expect God to do his part. But I also know that there's a responsibility for me to do mine. So I'm going to show up and do everything he said to do, even if it costs me a little something. I'm going to do everything he said to do because I know that we are in this together. And we listen, every day is not a good day. We fight sometimes. but but we're going to do it anyway because I know that doing it his way is better than it would be doing mine. Right? So identify your resistance type. What is your thing? Right? What is the thing that this causing you to resist? And I want you to drop it in the chat. So if you're a mental resistant person, if you feel like that's the one that shows up the most for you, drop a 1. Drop a 1 in the chat. If it's emotions, drop a 2 in the chat. If it's spiritual resistance, drop a 3 in the chat. Which one are you? Which one are you? Or if you're all 3, you can just say, it's all me. All of them. All 3 of y'all, all of them. Um, it's okay. We're here. So let me see what we got. 1, 2, and 3. Listen, I understand. 1, 1, 2, and 3. Yes. Listen, I'm a 1, 2, and 3. Probably I spend more time in 1 and 3, but I'm a 1, 2, and 3. 1 and 3 are the ones that really. All right. All right. So, that perfectionism is on me heavy. All right. It will slow me down sometimes, but not anymore, right? So like we have to take accountability and say, okay, these are the things. Now, how do I move through them? Okay? So take 30 seconds to answer this. What's one lie resistance has made you believe about yourself or your calling? What's one lie that resistance has made you believe about yourself or your calling? And you can drop that in the chat, or you can just write it in your notes, whichever one is best for you. Wait until the right time. Okay. Okay. Anybody else want to drop theirs in the chat? No real creativity. Someone else may steal an idea or already been done. Listen, that's a real one. That's a real one. They're all real. I'm not holy or spiritually mature enough to actually carry out the plans God has for me. Man, listen, we know that these are all lies, okay? We know that these are all lies. And we know that there's a truth that we can attach to this. So whenever you have the lie that comes up, write the truth, right? Or whenever a lie is coming up for you, counteract that with the truth. So what do you know to be true? And sometimes you don't know in your own words. And so you need to go and look at what the book says. So what does God say about me specifically? Right? But but y'all know I got like 8,000 books for you. But book, we did this in the book club a couple of years ago. Um, I am what the Bible says I am. I can do what the Bible says I can do, and I can have what the Bible says I can have. I'll put the author in your email because I do not remember at this time, but Manaya might remember. But solid book, very easy read, but a solid book. If you want to be reminded of what God says about you, read that book. Read that book. Listen, that book is gold, okay? So, um, but there are some truths that you can replace these lies with. And so it's time to counteract these lies, um, because you have things to do. So real. I wrote some songs because I didn't want to put it out. Because someone would steal it. And there are ways that you can protect your things from being stolen too, right? You can protect your intellectual property. And so getting into some of those things are important too. Listen, I'm bringing some people up in these spaces that can talk about some tactical things for how to be able to like protect ourselves in those spaces, right? But also um how to be rooted and grounded in all the things that we need to be rooted and grounded in this season. So finances, all those types of things. Like I'm bringing people in to talk so that we can get our things together. But at the same time, don't let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game, right? That's a quote from somebody else. I'm just using it. But don't not do it because you're scared. Don't not do it because you're scared. We have a lot of tools. We have a lot of resources out here. There's so much that is out and available to us today that may not have even been here 5 years ago that can help you to do whatever it is that you need to do. Do what you gotta do. Thank you. Jake and Keith Province. I am. Okay, so breaking cycles of procrastination, self-doubt, and fear. Procrastination. Raise your hand if you deal with procrastination. Hi, my name is Candace, and sometimes I procrastinate. Uh, yeah, yeah, okay. Uh-huh. Yes, I see you all. I see those hands. Yes, I see that hand. I see that hand. I see that hand. Uh, Procrastination. When you keep putting things off, procrastination isn't necessarily being lazy, right? Procrastination um is about fear, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of getting it wrong. Um, Whatever it is, it's attached to a fear. But let me hit you with something else. Delayed obedience is still disobedience, right? Delayed obedience is still disobedience. So if God gave you an assignment and you keep saying, I'll do it tomorrow, you might be acting in a rebellion without even realizing that you're acting in rebellion. It's tight, but it's right. But listen, no shame, no guilt. We listen and we don't judge. Just awareness, right? What's the one thing that you have been avoiding that you need to take action on this week? Or what is the one thing that you have been putting off that you need to take action on this week? Go ahead and write it in the chat. Let me see it in the chat. What's the thing that you've been putting off? What have you been avoiding? Listen, I see the smile. I know it's there. What is it? What have you been avoiding that you need to do? I know for me, I need to make a phone call tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, I need to make a phone call. I've been putting it off, and I have no reason to put the phone call off. There's nothing attached to me putting it off. I just haven't done it. And so I'm like, I need to get on top of that phone call, make the phone call. So tomorrow, I'm gonna make the phone call. For you, what is it? Listen, I told you mine. I gotta make a phone call. What's yours? I'm waiting. Don't worry, I'll wait. Mhm. Starting back my social media presence. Hmm. Working on my book more. It can be tedious. Yes, book. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I second that. Social media presence. Uh-huh. Anybody else? And remember, so that for the ones, for the number one people out here, the people who like to be in their mind with the resistance. Those are the perfectionist people, right? It doesn't always have to look a specific way. Okay? Huh? Going through your contacts, strategizing how to gain real estate clients. Listen, go through your contacts, right? It doesn't always have to look. I think sometimes we make it harder than it has to be because we're like, well, it needs to do this and I need to do that and da 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 da. And like, so for when God was like, start the blog page, I was like, okay, but that means I have to write a new blog piece every day or every week, and I don't always know what I'm gonna write about because like I don't know. Like, does it have to be a certain format? Do I need to be in a theme? Da 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 da. All these different things. And God's like, do you not put out a whole devotional for every day of the week? I'm like, that's true. I do that. Said, but you send it to just certain people. And I'm like, that's also true, God. I do that also. Mhm. Like this is what he said to me. He said, stop. He said, come, no, he said, come out of hidden places, come out of private spaces. And so that devotional that y'all seen on Substack is me just putting out what I've been putting in my private spaces, right? And so like there's something that you might be making harder than it seems. Like that's something just I know God's been giving me to do, right? And so there's something that he's been giving you to do that you probably already do on a very regular basis that can do whatever it is that you need to do, right? Or fulfills whatever it is that you need to do. But you got to stop overthinking that part, right? For writing, it doesn't always have to be writing in the moment. Sometimes it can be just recording you speak certain things and then go back and transcribe it, edit it, and put it out. Okay, I'm off it. So do your thing this week, whatever it is for the people, do your thing. So self-doubt is when we feel unqualified, right? Self-doubt is a straight up spiritual amnesia because it makes you forget who you are and whose you are. Listen, straight up spiritual amnesia makes you forget who you are and whose you are. If God called you, he already equipped you, period, end of discussion. Close the book. He's giving you everything that you need. You are a royal priesthood. He created you for good works, right? He he can do exceedingly abundantly above all that you can ask, think, dream, or imagine, according to the power that's already at work within you. It's already done. It's already available to you. You are who he says you are. You can do what he said you can do, and you can have what he says you can have. Period. End of story. End of story. Listen, I'm telling you a lot of my own personal things today so that you don't think that we out here walking in perfection. But not too long ago, a little, I was in a season of depression, right? And God had to sit with me in that space, right? But when I came out, right, I had some questions. I was like, well, like, what are we here? Are we there? Like, what are we doing? Like, or do I still do this? Do I need to do that? And like, guys, like I told you what to do, right? I told you what to do. I gave you the plans. I gave you the blueprint. Walk out what I told you to walk out. But sometimes he has to send people who will remind you of who you are and whose you are. Sometimes he has to put it in writing for you, right? And so one day I was reading something that just reiterated for me exactly who I am and what I am called to do. And I said, well, hold on. All right. Let me tell you something, enemy. You should have got me when you had me down, okay? You should have took me out when you had your chance because I forgot for a minute who I am. And I forgot for a moment what power God has given me. And I forgot for a minute the authority that he has on my life. But now that I remember, I'm coming for everything that my name is on, right? Sometimes we forget. Like it's a trick of the enemy. Sometimes the self-doubt will make us forget who it is that God has called and created us to be. But the moment you remember, the enemy gets scared because he knows that you're coming for him. I'm coming for everything that's got my name on it, and I mean it. I'm coming for it, right? And so I might have to go back and forth in the war room and be like, all right, God, now, because this a little scary. And I don't know how we gonna work this out. And like, are we going this way? Are we going that way? Which way? What's the plan for today? Like, what's the plan for today? Which is why I spend so much time. People might say it doesn't take all that for you to spend so much time in the morning with God. For me, it does. It takes all of that. It takes that whole time. It takes at least 2 hours every day to sit with God in the morning because I need the blueprint. I need to pray about specific things. And I have to be very intentional with like praying about all the things, right? And so people are like, God doesn't care about the small things. He cares about the small things. He cares about the big things. He cares about all the details of my life. There is nothing too small for him. And so when I'm going into my day, I need to have my battle plan. God, this is coming up in my day. I have this meeting with such and such. They're dealing with this. So let me pray about this for them first, but also give me the wisdom and the words to say in this conversation with them so that when we are talking, we're not just having a lackadaisical conversation. We're talking about the things that they need so they're able to do what they need to do. Like all the things need to be prayed for before I go and talk to anybody in the day. Like all the things, I have things that I have to pray about. Like I have got to be intentional with my prayer life, right? Because I know the type of attacks that come from my mind. I know what kind of attacks come from my day, right? And I need to be equipped and ready for it. This is not even in the notes, but it's here for us to have a conversation about it, right? Like we take that part of our relationship with God a little too loosely. He said, pray about everything and worry about nothing. He didn't say pray about the things that you can't handle. Because in reality, you can't handle any of it. And so when you're overwhelmed, when you're stressed, when you're burnt out, all of those things come from you trying to do stuff by yourself when you don't have to. Tap in, lock in, right? So Philippians 1:6 says, he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. That means your job is not to be perfect. Your job is to show up and let God handle the rest. But be intentional about when you come to him, what you leave at his table so that he can handle it. He can handle all the things, excuse me. He can handle all the things, but sometimes he's waiting for you to bring it to him. All the things are done, and sometimes he's still waiting for you. So are you gonna surrender that to me yet? Are you gonna ask me about that? Or are you just gonna keep trying to do that by yourself? What's up? How are we gonna move? Right? Your job is to show up and let God handle the rest. That means you have to give him the rest to handle. So what are you doubting that God already confirmed? What are you doubting that God already confirmed? Because the only person questioning your calling is you. Other people can see it on you. Other people can see what you're carrying. When people come through and they're jealous, or when people come through and they're trying to derail you, it's because they see something. You don't have to write that one in the chat. Just think about that one. You know. You know. All right. So here's the activity behind that. Grab a piece of paper or your notes app or your workbook and write down the one thing that you've been putting off that you mentioned, right? And then answer these questions. What's the next small step I can take today, right? Or tomorrow, right? It's a little late. It's 8:08, so it's a little late. So what's the next small step that you can take today or tomorrow, but within the next 24 hours? What's the truth that replaces the fear or excuse? Use scripture to help back it up. What's the truth that replaces fear or excuse? What's one way that you can stay accountable to this? And these are all in your workbook also. So when we change screens, you don't have to say, oh, go back. It's in the workbook. Drop your next step in the chat. Let's see what your next step is. So for me, my next step for the thing I've been putting off is to make my phone call tomorrow. So simple. Takes probably 30 minutes, but I need to make my phone call tomorrow. So what's your thing? Third child to protect their intellectual property so I can post freely. That's good. That's good. Um, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. My thing is to put movement on what God promised me. Yes, I love that. Absolutely. So, um, for the people with the intellectual property, go through all the motions to protect your things, but also keep this in mind. Your father is not a father of lack. And if he gave you that idea, he can give you other ideas. So don't hoard everything because you're afraid that you'll lose it. One of my affirmations is, my father lacks nothing, and therefore I lack nothing. My Father is abundant, and therefore I am abundant. I lack nothing. I have everything that I need, right? So, um, okay, come on, Jesus. The story that just came up. Um, the servants with the talents, right? And so when the master came for things because of fear of stealing, but yes. So the master came and he gave the coins to the servant, right? And I'm paraphrasing. So this is the Candace version, the CKC translation. So, he gives the talents to the servants, right? And one servant, sold, like, did things to grow his money. He doubled his money. One servant got, some of his money back, it grew an increase, right? And then there was the one that hid it in the ground. He was like, well, I knew you were a man that was strict, and that you are very particular about things, and so I put it in the ground so that you would have exactly what you gave me back. And he's like, that was wicked. So instead of doing, I'm not rewarding you, I'm gonna take what you have and give it to somebody else, right? And he said you wicked servant. What? Listen, hold on. Now I gotta pull up the word. Un momento, por favor, because I need to get this right. Because I feel it like it came up out of nowhere. Talents. Okay. Matthew 25. So he told him, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Right. And so, like, this particular text is about, he's talking about, it can be taken from this text that is just talking about money, right? But he's talking about the things that he gives us, right? Money is a part of the things that he gives us to steward over, but he's talking about the things that he gives us. And so if you have something, give it away. You're gonna get it. You're gonna get it, right? That goes for me too. There are things in this season that God is just like, give it away. I'm like, wait, but it's like, give it away, right? But God is meeting every need that needs to be met. He is meeting every need. He gives me more than enough to give away, right? And he's not putting us in positions to give something for us to hold it to ourselves. You have something that the world needs, and they need it from you. Okay? So, keeping faith at the center without burning out. Um, Listen, we are not out here striving on our own strength. We are moving with God's grace. And grace doesn't mean do nothing. it means do it with divine energy. And so if you're feeling burned out, you might be trying to do things on your own power instead of letting God lead. And that's where we at in this week's devotional. So when you read the devotional this week, it's going to be stepping on some toes about the stillness, right? Because we get to sit with God and we get to sit in the stillness and we get to allow him to be able to do things um with he can do more with our less, right? So Jesus literally said, "Come to me, all who labor, and I will give you rest." Rest is not optional. It wasn't just a good idea. It's holy. It's holy. So make sure you're operating from a place of God's peace and not just human hustle. I'm not gonna go too deep in this today because you're about to get a whole week on it. And I'm talking about it tomorrow morning at 4:30. So if you want to hear more about the rest and the stillness, it'll be 4:30 for people who get up, and the recording will drop at 12. But God has a lot to say about this stillness. He has a lot to say about this rest. So I'm not going to dig into that too much, but that's how we keep from burning out, is letting our doing flow from our being and letting our work flow from our rest. So, motivation fades. Commitment is what keeps us moving. In Galatians 6:9 says, "Do not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time you will reap a harvest." And this means keep going even when you don't feel like it. Keep going even when it's hard. Keep going even when you don't know exactly what the next 5, 6 steps are. Focus on the one that he gave you, and he'll give you the rest. So let's do this. Take a second and write down one thing that you're committed to do this week to move forward. And you can write it in your notebook. You don't have to write it in the chat. You can, but you don't have to. Write it in your notes so that you're reminded that you're going to do this thing this week. Not when you feel ready. Not when everything looks like it's perfect. Not when all the stars in the sky are aligned and the moon is also in alignment. What's the thing that you're going to do now? And if you face resistance, congratulations. That means you are moving in purpose and on purpose. You're on the right track. All right. So, what are your next steps for this week? Declare war on resistance. We are at war. We are at war. No, for real, though. We are at war. Every time it shows up this week, recognize it and push back. Get your war room ready. What do you need in your arsenal? What are your weapons? Get some weapons this week so that you can fight against the resistance, right? And if you need some tools, come chat with me. Set up your next step in motion. So you already said what it is that you need to do that. Not tomorrow, not next week. Do it in the next 24 hours. And then stay connected. Chat with me if you need to chat. Pray with, if you need prayer, we can pray. Join the 4:30 prayer call or listen to the recording. Chat, write, and like there's a conversation that we're gonna keep going on the Faithful Dreamer chat. Like tap in there. Like, reach out for accountability and encouragement in that space. And then you have homework to do. And so the homework is in your workbook. If you need to set up time to chat with me this week, here's the QR code. Um, you know, Sometimes just text me a win. To say, this happened this week and I'm just excited to share, right? And so I can celebrate with you. Those things are all there for us. So it's been good. I feel like we accomplished a lot. Like this was a heavier topic than goals, right? But it was necessary. I feel like it's right on time for me too. So, take it with you this week, and the replay will be on YouTube in between today and tomorrow. So, if you need to go back and revisit, it'll be on YouTube. Um, and that's it. That's all I have for you today, friends. That is all. That is it. I will send your email with the replay as also, and I'll put the workbook in the email as well. I'm gonna pray us out and then we go. Okay? Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for this time that we have been able to gather together, God. Thank you for the words that you've given us. Thank you for the reminders of who we are that you've given us, God. Thank you for helping us to be able to fight against resistance, God, in this season so that we're able to do the things that you've called us to do without holding back, without not moving forward, without running in circles, without letting doubts or fear or mental, spiritual, or emotional resistance get in the way. God, we thank you for moving anything that is hindering us from doing what you told us to do. God, thank you for helping us to not worry about step 10, but thank you for showing us step 1 and helping us to take that next step, being reminded that you will give us everything that we need as we move forward. God, we're grateful that we are loved by you. We're grateful that we are your children. We are grateful that you have good things in store for us, God, that you know the plans that you have for us, plans to prosper us and not to harm us, plans to give us a hope and a future. God, you've known from before we were even a thought, before we even taken a breath, that who we are, who you created us to be, and what you had in store for us, God. And we thank you that when you knew, you already provided for us. When you knew, you already made the steps clear and you made the steps plain for us, God. And so we're grateful for that, God. Thank you for continuing to awe and amaze us this week. Thank you for blowing our minds this week. God, thank you for good reports this week. Thank you for good surprises this week. Thank you for just all sorts of things that we can just celebrate you for this week. Thank you for letting us see you in the big things and the small things. God, thank you for doing exceedingly and abundantly above all that we can ask, think, dream, or imagine according to the power that's already at work within us. God, thank you for stirring up each and every gift on this call, each and every uh, uh, power that you've given us, God, that we can walk it out boldly, confidently, and courageously. We love you. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, y'all. Have a good week. 4:30 people. I'll see you at 4:30. Otherwise, I'll see y'all throughout the week and on next Sunday. Have a good one.